Any technical difficulties and need any assistance, just message us in the chat box, or you can contact Julie Ellingson with our office at 701-223-4232 or at jellingson@ndwater.net. And that information to access the chat is up on the screen now. If you have questions for the presenter during the presentation, just type them into the chat box and we'll get them over to our presenter. And please make sure to stay on mute while the presenter is speaking or until we instruct you to unmute, just to get rid of any background noise. So with that, I am pleased to introduce our next panel, all from the Bureau of Reclamation, going to give us an update on Bureau activities. Our first presenter is Joe Hall. Joe is the area manager for the Bureau of Reclamation's Dakotas area office. He oversees operations in both North Dakota and South Dakota and operations for the Keyhole Dam and Reservoir located in the easternmost part of Wyoming. Hall oversees all aspects of planning, construction, operation, and maintenance, resource and land management, fish and wildlife, and environmental matters involving the management, development, and protection of water and related resources in the Dakotas. Hall's office is also involved with U.S., North Dakota, and Canada international transboundary issues. Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that great introduction. So I believe Julie or somebody is going to run my slides, but as pointed out, I'm Joe Hall. I'm the area manager for Dakota Area's office, and I'm going to give you from the Bureau of Reclamation and give you an update of what's going on in our office today. So next slide, please. You did an excellent job of giving an overview of our area office. So this just shows our area. As mentioned, our area covers North Dakota, South Dakota, and a little portion of Wyoming with the Keyhole Reservoir. And our area office manages 9 dams, 3 in North Dakota, 3 in North Dakota, 5 in South Dakota, 1 in Wyoming. We cover operations, maintenance, facilities, rural water, including those for 2 tribes, including those for tribes in 2 states. Reclamation project in both states provide a water supply to a total irrigated acreage of 97,000 acres and an average of $16 million worth of crops annually. Municipal, rural, and industrial water supplies, we serve about 700,000 people when all these projects will be completed. And right now, over 1 million visitors participate in recreation activities and on our reservoirs through the Dakotas. Next slide, please. This year was a dramatic change from previous years, with the drought taking over most of the Dakotas. 4 of our dams in the Dakotas received nearly 0 inflows throughout the year. That was covered by some of your previous presenters. All but 1 of our dams was below average. However, even though we had low water, we were able to make deliveries throughout these drought conditions. And we will continue to monitor the drought situation to ensure water deliveries in the future. Next slide, please. We have a number of projects going on in Dakotas we are currently working on. This slide highlights one of our major repairs. We are planning at the Angostura Dam. Damage has occurred on the downstream side of the dam. This damage was caused primarily from freeze thaw and can be viewed as lift lines. If you look at the slide in the highlighted red area there, in the red circle, you can see some of the lift lines. The resurfacing project will fix these flaws and return the smooth surface to the spillway. Design efforts we're working on in November this year, and we anticipate a repair in 2023. Next slide, please. Heart Butte Dam, we've talked about this the last couple of years. We're going through working on a safety of dam issues at Heart Butte Dam. this continues to be an ongoing effort. We have a corrective action study underway that determined the best repair for the dam. The repair will correct seepage issues with the dam's outlet works in combination with addressing foundational issues, the outlet works around the conduit. Right now, we anticipate drawing the dam down in late 2023 with final drawdown to dead pool in spring of 2024. If the weather cooperates with us. Recent constructability review of the proposed alternatives of the repair of the dam indicated that construction would take about 2 years with completion in 2025. Next slide. This is an effort we just completed this past year. Legislation was passed in 2018 directing Reclamation to transfer lands associated with the Dickinson and Jamestown reservoirs to the local managing entities. Both land conveyances were completed in February of 2021 of this year. The legislation gave us 5 years to complete the conveyance, and we completed it in just over 2 years. So that was a great accomplishment. It is important to note that although we transferred the recreation and the land, Reclamation retains the ownership and management of the dam and necessary lands to maintain them. So we will keep the dam and maintain that, but all the rest was given to the 2 local entities. Next slide, please. So another major accomplishment, Oaks text area title transfer. An effort by Congress to transfer federal facilities local ownership, public law was enacted in 2019 to allow Reclamation to transfer the Oaks test area to the Dickey-Sargent Irrigation District. On October 15th, there was a signing ceremony that was held at the water plant, and pictured in the slide, you'll see Deputy Secretary Kate McGregor, Dickey-Sargent District Chairman David Locken, and U.S. Senator John Hoeven, who is a big proponent of getting this transferred. Reclamation has currently entered into a long-term water service contract with the Dickey-Sargent Irrigation District for water service from the Jamestown Reservoir. This will be used as a backup source of irrigation water during dry times. Snake Creek Embankment and Snake Creek Pumping Plant and Embankment. We have some things going on up there to address some issues. Lake Audubon this fall, late summer and fall, was drawn down 6 feet to accommodate the Corps of Engineers is making repairs to the embankment. At the same time, the Garrison Diversion District started repairs on the Snake Creek Pumping Plant outlet works wing wall. As they started to repair that, they determined that it should be replaced. So Garrison Diversion intends to replace the wall when the cofferdam is installed around the outlet works. And that'll be installed when we're working to complete the intake and pumping plant for the Northwest area water supply. Additionally, we're working with the Corps of Engineers and the Garrison Conservancy District to address long-term concerns with the embankment foundation. And we're working to develop alternatives that will help deliver water during a prolonged drought. Slide, please. This is another project I've reported on and we're working on the last several years. McCluskey Canal slide repairs. McCluskey Canal system is undergoing repairs to fix a blocked area due to the slumping and slouching of the bank. The repair was about 2 miles long. The repairs were needed to meet downstream water service commitments, and we're in the 5th year of this repair, and you can see on the slide how they sloped it and pulled back the banks, and this project is scheduled to complete it in 2023. Next slide. At the Dakotas, we have a large rural water program throughout Reclamation. There are 6 federally authorized rural water projects. And as of September, the remaining project ceiling for these projects was about $1.2 billion. That shows you at the bottom of the graph there. The 6 Reclamation authorized rural water projects include the Garrison Diversion Unit, Fort Peck Dry Prairie, Eastern New Mexico, Lewis and Clark, Rocky Boys North Central, and the Jicarilla in New Mexico. The Garrison Diversion Unit and Lewis and Clark are managed through our office here in Bismarck in the Dakotas. Reclamation's rural water funding for the Garrison Diversion Unit was $35 million this year, which includes the North Dakota State program and 4 tribal programs. In addition to Garrison, we also provided $17.5 million to the Lewis and Clark Rural Water Program. Reclamation does not have an enacted budget for FY22, but for the last several years, the House and Senate have written in approximately $100 million for rural water. So we're hoping for the same write-in, and so we can continue to work towards completing these projects and bringing down the ceiling. Next slide, please. I'm going to highlight a couple of the projects we're working on. The Garrison Diversion Unit tribal programs include Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, the Fort Berthold Reservation, the Spirit Lake, and the Turtle Mountain Reservations. Some highlight that we completed in 2021 include, on Standing Rock, we had the McLaughlin Pump Plant and the Edward Black Cloud Pump Station and Selfridge Tank, which are pictured here on the slide. The McLaughlin Pump Tank and Selfridge Tank were completed in 2021, and the Selfridge construction contract was awarded this May, and will connect the pump station to the tank here this next year. Ongoing projects on the Turtle Mountain include water treatment plant upgrades, the Thor Reservoir and Booster Station, and a reservoir replacement project. At Fort Berthold, we have several ongoing projects, including this user improvement contract and a contract for approximately 4 new water service connections. In addition, this Fort Berthold has completed the Mandaree water treatment plant sludge ponds. So a lot going on this year. Next slide, please. Now we're moving over to Garrison program side. Construction began this spring on the Northwest Area Supply Water Supply Project, the Biota Water Treatment Plant. It's being constructed near Max, North Dakota. Purpose of this treatment plant is to reduce the risk of transferring aquatic invasive species from the Missouri River project into the Hudson Bay Basin. The project water will be treated to drinking water standards, and then will be treated to drinking water standards at the Minot treatment plant prior to delivering water. The plant will be treating it for biota, and then we'll send it to Minot and will be brought up to drinking water standards. Next slide, please. This is the Central North Dakota Water Supply Project. We've completed the national, the NEPA process in 2018. And we're going to provide 20 CFS for this project. We've been working through the courts the last couple of years, and this past summer, got a favorable ruling from a federal court in Missouri that decided in our favor of the 4 defendants, which was Reclamation, the 3 defendants, Reclamation, the Corps of Engineers, and Garrison Diversion Unit. And the decision dismissed everything and ruled on all 5 claims in our favor. So that was a good ruling. Slide, please. In addition to the Central North Dakota project, Garrison Diversion Conservancy District has requested an additional $145,000 from the McCluskey Canal. Reclamation completed an EIS to analyze the impacts of this project, which is called the Eastern North Dakota Alternate Water Supply Project. This project would provide a bulk water supply for the state's Red River Water Supply Project. Within the red hash box on the slide is an intake for the McCluskey Canal, and a pipeline will be built to the state's Red River Supply Project. A biota treatment plant will be constructed, and the alternative pipeline routes have been evaluated in the environmental impact statement, and a preferred alternative was selected with a record of decision in January. This project was allow the use of existing facilities and provide significant construction and operation maintenance savings. Slide, please. The Dakota Area's office oversees the operation and maintenance of the mini Wyoming water system. The system is located in central South Dakota, as you can see on the map. The system covers 11 counties, 3 reservations, which is the Rosebud, the Lower Brule, and the Pine Ridge. 1/6, this rural water system covers 1/6 of the area of South Dakota, or about 12,000, over 12,000 square miles, with approximately 5,000 miles of pipe. The project serves approximately 50,000 people and 250,000 head of livestock. Some major projects for the mini Wyoming system this year include: the system experienced several emergency system outages due to significant leaks, as shown in the photo on the right. Reclamation assisted with repairs of the Technical Service Center in completing a study to determine the cause of the leaks and propose possible solutions. The Guala Sioux Tribe Core System received supplemental drought funding for the design of the new storage reservoirs. The conceptual drawing is shown on the picture on the left. And two surface water treatment plants are developing projects for the increased zebra mussel presence in the Missouri River system. Next slide, please. Lewis and Clark Regional Water System. Reclamation also funds this system. It's located in southeastern South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa. This is the only reclamation project that is located outside of Reclamation's area operation in the 17 western states. At complete construction, the rural water system will serve about 300,000 people, including the cities of Sioux Falls, Worthington, Minnesota, and Sioux Center, Iowa. System has 20 members consisting of communities and rural water systems and covers approximately 5,000 square miles. Water from the system comes from wells adjacent to the Missouri River near Vermillion, South Dakota. Recent construction has focused on a distribution pipeline in the state of Iowa, and adequate storage along the distribution system is also a key component of the system. Construction of the Union County Tower is underway near the community of Birdsford, South Dakota. This 2.5 million gallon reservoir is pictured on the left. I believe we're going to save questions for the end, but I'm happy to answer any right now.
Yeah, I think we will go back to our panel and then just have questions for everybody here at the end of the discussion. So thanks, Joe. We'll turn now to Ryan Newman, our next presenter. Ryan is the area manager for the Bureau of Reclamation's Montana area office, providing leadership for the Montana area office employees located in Billings, as well as 4 field offices: Canyon Ferry, Yellowtail, Clark Canyon, and the Marias Milk Rivers. The Montana area office manages 13 dams and reservoirs that provide irrigation. The office also manages 2 hydroelectric power plants that produce about 40% of the region's annual power generation. Ryan most recently served as the Upper Snake Field Office Assistant Area Manager. I will turn it over to you, Ryan.
All right, first off, just a status check, IT check. Can you see my screen all right? And can you hear me all right?
Yep, both look great.
Oh, good, thanks. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Really appreciate the opportunity. As with Joe, I'm gonna hop right into our overall area. See, trying to advance my slides here. Maybe tab will work. No, it's gonna make me click the arrow. As the name implies, Montana area office, we cover most of the state of Montana with the exception of those lands in Montana that are part of the Columbia Pacific Northwest. So largely it's the upper Missouri watershed area in all of Montana is depicted on this figure here. We do have a smidgen of our operations that do go into Wyoming associated with Yellowtail Dam and Reservoir. The symbology on this map depicts the distribution of all of our different assets that we manage across the state of Montana. So it's quite a wide area, spread out quite a bit. You have to like the backside of your windshield because you spend a lot of time looking at it going from place to place, but cover a pretty good size area. And just to kind of break it down into numbers, we have 13 dams across the state that are classified as high hazard that we manage. We have 9 diversion dams that are all classified as low hazard, good thing. We also have 10 pumping plants, 2 power plants, 21 irrigation districts on 13 authorized projects that irrigate about a little over 360,000 acres of farmlands throughout the state. Within those, there's obviously thousands of miles of canals and laterals. And then to support the different 13 authorized projects that we have, there's a little over 120,000 acres of federal lands. I'm going to talk a little bit about a few of the more major items we have going on. I'm looking more to describe a smattering across our business lines here in the area office. We have a lot going on, so it's kind of hard to decide what to talk about. So I'm going to pull up some of the larger ones that are going on right now. You know, drought operations has been a theme of the meeting, and it likely will be for a little while. Hopefully this drought cycle breaks soon, but I'll talk about it in a little more specific numbers as it relates to Montana. We got this dam safety project going on up in north central part of the state. Also some work on the St. Mary's headworks. Got quite a few power projects going on. Our power plants are very busy places these days. 4 large rural water projects in varying degrees of build out, and then quite a few land management and recreation actions that are associated with those or independent of those. So I'll touch on that. Just rolling into the drought impacts, you know, we've seen the figure on the left more on a national scale. It's no different here. Largely an extreme or exceptional drought throughout the state. But as how that related to our reservoirs, more specifically, none of our reservoirs had an average inflow volume. That's April through September. That's a total amount of water that flows into the reservoir between those months. And the average, and you can see that obviously captures the spring runoff. And so nowhere did we hit the average. And at one reservoir, Clark Canyon, we're even below half of the average. So as you can see by those numbers, it was a pretty low runoff year for us here in Montana. To see how that manifested itself a little more specifically at Bighorn Reservoir, we're about 12 foot from filling it up, and the outlet flows down to the Bighorn River, world-class, very popular fishery where every CFS is significant. We're about 500 CFS below desirable flows. Then we obviously had reduced power generation, which is expected with lower flows. One thing to point out is this is the lowest max that we've had in a year at Bighorn since 2006. Coming in on the tail of the early 2000 drought cycle that we went through then. Moving up to Canyon Ferry up by Helena, that was about 7 feet from filling up. And so we ended up with a minimum fishery release of 3,000, which obviously it reduces power generation again. And one little fact I'd like to call out is our September inflow this year was the lowest in 67 years. It's the lowest we've ever recorded up at Canyon Ferry. So very dry year up there. And it's the lowest max we've seen since 2004. And this going into this storage season right now, it's the lowest carryover we've seen since 1988. Moving down to southwest Montana, East Bench Unit, Clark Canyon. That was 6 feet from full pool. The irrigation district, even though the indicators at the time didn't direct them that way, according to their drought management plan, they still invoked the reduced irrigation allotments, which was a very, very good move on their part, very insightful. And it served them well moving through the year relative to storage going into this fall. We are at a minimum winter fishery release. We always like to be able to release a little bit if we can, but conditions certainly don't allow that this year. And as I mentioned a couple slides ago, we only received about 45% of our average inflow this year at that facility. Going on with the Milk River project up at Fresno, well, on the whole project, we had reduced allotments across the entire project. We had earlier shutdown date for a lot of the districts in Canada and the United States. Fresno had its lowest max since 2004, and Nelson had its lowest max since 2002. So again, it just kind of helps put it into perspective how the reservoirs fared this year relative to that early 2000 drought cycle. Sun River project, they had reduced irrigation allotments and lower than average releases. But they did benefit, ironically, from a couple timely and positioned well rain events. They certainly were still very dry, but they did have a couple rain events that lined up with their areas nicely and at the right time. And then moving over to Tiber, we're 2 feet from filling, and our river releases throughout the year and going into the winter are well below our average releases. Now I'm going to shift over to a dam safety project we have going up on the Milk River project on our Keystone Reservoir in there, Fresno Reservoir, kind of the backbone reservoir of that system. It's part of the Milk River project. It was constructed in 37, completed construction 2 years later in 39. And as I said, it's a keystone reservoir to that system. It supplies water to the irrigation districts, individual irrigators, communities, all pursuant to contracts that we have with them. And then it extends about 165 miles downstream along the river that we irrigate. And so it's a very significant reservoir. It's about 140,000 acres of land that it serves. We had a correction action study that we did in 2009, and that identified some issues we had with the dam as it related to some settlement. And so we've had about 10 feet of differential settlement. That's due to a compressible foundation. This is the construction technique at the time. And so there are some concerns that, there might be some cracking, you could get some intermittent cracking that connects, and then your annual cycling of the water levels and the episodic loading, there's a chance that you could have some seepage that could occur in some of the downstream phase. That's obviously unacceptable. And so the corrective action study identified, a path forward. And again, as I mentioned, that's through a dam safety program. And they're going to look at, modifying it to correct the deficiencies by basically doing an overlay. It's a state of the practice sand filter and tow drain system. You can see the red on the figure there. It's kind of a cross section. It shows where the material would be placed. And it basically involves covering it with an overlay and then on the downstream tow. And then also there's a vertical sand filter trench that's at the bottom of the excavation. And basically you remove the existing tow drain and you install a vertical sand filter trench at the bottom. The idea is it intercepts water and conveys it out in a more controlled fashion, thus eliminating the issue. So that's a project that we're just now taking off into. We are at the 90% design stage. Total project cost can be about $71 million. And of that amount, 15% is borne by the project beneficiaries. That's how all dam safety projects go in reclamation. And we're hoping to have the contract awarded this FY, fiscal year 22, and start construction as soon as conditions allow in the spring of 23. And it's going to be a 3-year construction window. And we're pretty excited to have that in our review mirror. Been putting a lot of work and effort into that, and it's long overdue. It's definitely something we need to get going on. And I'm shifting over to staying up on the High Line and shifting over to the west side of it, St. Mary diversion facilities. The diversion facilities are so significant to the whole St. Mary Milk River project and system in northern Montana. About 50 to 90% of the water to the Milk River system comes from St. Mary. And so it's very important that the diversion and conveyance facilities are intact. They're very old. As you know, last year, my predecessor, Steve Davies, a large portion of his presentation was on the drop 5 failure. He did a very good job of walking through that in detail and how that shut down the system and the implications associated with that. So I just highlight that to underscore the importance of this component of the Milk River system. And so this really is the overall backbone of that system up there. And so we're looking at coming in and replacing the diversion and headworks structure. Granted, this photo doesn't show exactly how beat up it is, but it's a pretty picture, so I liked it. But there it is in quite a state of disrepair. I mean, it's literally crumbling. And so we're looking at design right now. We've completed about 30% design for the replacement dam and the fish protection features. And I'll call that out real quickly. we do have the ESA listed bull trout up there. And so in our consultation process, that was one of the items that was called out, is addressing entrainment into the canal, and then also allowing upstream downstream passage of the fish. So the new design takes that into account. It's about $80–90 million project. And the project beneficiaries up there, they bear almost 3/4 of the total project cost. So that's very significant to the irrigation district. So they're looking at a bill, you know, around that $63 million mark for this project. We're looking at various funding opportunities. Obviously, there's the infrastructure bill that's out there. If that comes to reality, we're going to see some funding opportunities there. Otherwise, we're also doing an ability to pay study right now. And there's also PL 11111 loans as funding opportunities. Shifting over to power, I appreciated power being called out in the very first presentation of the day. It's a lot of work goes on in power facilities, and I'm going to move through the projects going here pretty quick. But one thing I just want to call out, is very important that, you know, when we're doing these power plant projects, two things go into them, into the power rates, because see, we have reserve power customers, and they can get at cost power, and power customers are funding these projects. And so those rates are determined on, you know, one, how much power we produce and what that power is worth, and secondarily, how much it costs to produce that power. So every one of these projects I'm going to run through pretty quick, basically add into that equation and drive a portion of that rate. So it's really important that we do very strategic planning. And so again, right up front, something I want to point out also is, you may think, gosh, that's quite a few projects to do at once, but just like any large invasive project, when you really tear into it, like in your home, you tear into a major project and undertaking, it may present opportunities to grab some other items that you just weren't quite getting to. Some projects that may have been a little larger suddenly become low-hanging fruit when you do a very large invasive project. And at Canyon Ferry, it's no exception. You know, we're doing a very major rehab there, just starting it. And so to support that, or in conjunction with that, we're doing a complete bridge crane rehab. There's quite a bit that goes into that. Did a new jib crane, new hoist, did complete new, you know, air compression installation, new DC battery system. There's quite a bit that goes into that. We did some acquisitions this year for our SF6 breakers for our switchyard project, and also the unit rewind and refurbishment, which is the large project that I'm talking about. So the photos here, you can see upper right-hand corner, those are our air compressors. See the crane on the left and the SF6 breakers there on the bottom. And then on this photo, it shows some of the other projects we have going on. I reference those breakers. They're used for our switchyard rehab project that we're doing a large rehabilitation project there. And we're also doing a rehab on our outlet gates, as well as a low voltage supply project. So each one of those, and within those, there's a lot of smaller items I'm not listing. And so Canyon Ferry is very busy this year and going into the next 3 years. Yellowtail, exact same way. We're just wrapping up a very major unit rewind project. There were quite a few things that went into that. You can see some of the items listed there. I won't go through and read everything on the slide, but I do want to call out that we're finishing our spring key replacement on unit 3, and then our unit staff, our facility staff are going in and replacing quite a few of the protection relays, as well as some other things in the control room. And we're also taking on the low voltage project, just like we're doing at Canyon Ferry. Here's a couple photos that call out the low voltage replacement on the left, and on the right, it's the unit protection relay panels that took the opportunity to replace during the large rewind outage. And then the next slide's pretty busy, but basically shows unit disassembly and a lot of the contractor work on the rewind. It's all hands on deck, a lot going on, but take the opportunity while you're in there elbow deep to get as much done as we can and maximize productivity relative to dollars spent. Pivoting over to rural water, like Dakota Area Office, we have rural water in Montana, not nearly as many projects as Joe has over to the east of us, but we do have some very large projects. There's 4 of them called out on here. You can see the Rocky Boy North Central, it's green top center. I'm going on the assumption you see the same colors I see. The upper right-hand corner, blue, that's Fort Peck Dry Prairie. Have the dry red water, that's purple on, that sets on between the two rivers, just south of Fort Peck. And then the Mussel Shell Judith, or central Montana, and right in the center of Montana, the yellow one. So I'm gonna go into Fort Peck Dry Prairie. That's about a 320, I think it's about a 316 billion is the federal cost ceiling, adjusted to 2021. And funding, they've been receiving about 30 to 31 million a year. And it's a project that's been moving along very well. And they recently bid and awarded the final service area. And also we're doing the design activities for some of the remaining branch lines that need to be done. And the 4 areas listed right there. And really we're looking to have final construction done up there 23, 24, which is well in advance of the funding authorization sunset of FY26. So it's pretty exciting to see this one get to where the end of the tunnel is in sight. A lot of folks have been doing outstanding work up here and are really excited to see this one too and across the finish line. So I just wanted to highlight where they are relative to that. And it's been a lot of good work going in there, but it's a challenge. All of our rural water projects struggling this year with the cost of pipe and some of our estimates that we receive and do planning around, and then you get real numbers in hand that really set you back on your heels and makes you relook at some things. And that's been a challenge across the board in rural water this year in Montana. Rocky Boy North Central, it's about a $362 million project from the federal side. I'm getting about 24 million a year. And the one big accomplishment milestone is water treatment plant phase 1, looking to have that completed this next spring or summer. And then also doing some core pipeline installation on some major segments. And then after that, there's a lot of design going on right now for a couple other major segments. So we're really moving through at a pretty good rate and really excited to see that water treatment plant get stood up the way it has, and it's lined up for that completion this next summer. Moving over to central Montana, or Mussel Shell Judith, they're kind of new on the scene in terms of authorization. They did a feasibility under the authority of Reclamation's Rural Water Supply Act of 2006. They completed it in 2004, and we completed our feasibility report in 2015. And then it was ultimately authorized in December of 2020. Total cost of that is going to be about, at least a federal share, about $56 million. It's obviously going to be more than that from the non-federal side. And they hit the ground running. Phase 1 bidding is going to be going out this fall or winter. And they're looking at utilizing funding from the state of Montana and USDA Rural Development. And they're hoping as soon as spring conditions allow to be able to exercise that contract and start construction of phase 1. And they're also currently ongoing with the design work of phase 2. Dry Redwater, still working on their feasibility study and making progress on that. And we're real hopeful that that'll move along and we'll see them fully authorized and up and constructing forward as well. I know they are doing some work outside of Reclamation and getting some construction done and doing some great things in that footprint over there as well. And we're excited to see them get stood up like the rest and move it forward. Jump into my last topic that I had listed was lands, resources, recreation. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here, but I did want to call out a few numbers and a few facts with it. And everything we do in Reclamation and all the projects that I already went through, there's the underpinning of all the regulatory requirements. There's a lot of collaboration, coordination with partners that's required. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that have to happen, and if they don't, you can't move forward. And you can get in a situation where really the tail wags the dog on a small permit holding up a multi-million-dollar project, and we've all experienced that in one way or another. And so the Lands Resource Group, a lot of that lands in their world, and just these are just some stats to date with this calendar year. We've done 37 NHPA consultations and included in there some tribal consultations as well. They've done 2 EAs and 26 categorical exclusions so far this year in support of our projects. And then they've done 6 informal ESA consultations. They did wrap up a formal ESA consultation at the beginning of this year. And then there's 26 no effect determinations that they had to work through and come to conclusion on. Realty instruments, we crank out quite a few of these in support of rural water. Need to stay ahead of the trencher, and 219 have been put out so far in that area. And then the realty group does a lot of miscellaneous permits, and we've done between 25 and 30 to date as well. On top of that, full-time management of 63 grazing leases, and also working with our partners to manage the balance of our lands outside of that 66,000 acres that the grazing leases cover. And then in the recreation world, Montana, unlike a lot of other reclamation area offices, we have the majority of our own recreation and have recreation authority for quite a bit of them. So we will run them with in-house resources. We have 4 marinas and 49 recreation areas. And to date, we've had well over 1 million visitor use days. And there's quite a bit that goes on just in that category. I could take up the whole time allotment on that alone. And then also 130 cabin permits, as well as all the other stuff that lands in their world. You know, they do biological monitoring, they do a lot of support for the irrigation districts, they do threatened and endangered species monitoring, work on a lot of easement abandonments or movements, water conservation support, unauthorized use, just to name a few, as well as special projects. So with that, I will come to a conclusion and hand it off to Lyle. Stop sharing here.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Yep, as you mentioned, our next presenter is Lyle Myler. Lyle received his degree in civil engineering with an emphasis in water resources from the University of Wyoming. Since that time, he has been employed by the Bureau of Reclamation's Wyoming area office located in Mills, Wyoming. Lyle has 31 years of experience working for Reclamation in Wyoming and has been involved in reservoir operations, land and recreation management, safety of dams, water accounting, and operations activities for the North Platte and the Wind Bighorn River basins. Currently, Lyle serves as the Deputy Area Manager for Reclamation's Wyoming area office. And Lyle, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, let me see if I can get my screen sharing going. I did better in practice, but
Oh, there it goes.
okay. So you're not seeing the full slides, you're only seeing the, let me try this again. Okay.
There it goes.
I think that's better. So let me, okay, here we go. Sorry about that delay. I'm Lyle Myler, Deputy Area Manager for Wyoming. Happy to be here this afternoon to give you updates on what we have going on in our basin in Wyoming. Today I'll focus my remarks on the basically Boysen and Buffalo Bill reservoirs, which in addition to those that we manage in that the headwaters of the upper Missouri watershed, we also have several facilities on the North Platte. But I'll focus my remarks on Boyson and Buffalo Bill. So I'm just going to cover real quickly information with regard to water supply, current and forecasted information, some power generation information, and then some infrastructure and maintenance type projects we have going on in the basin in Wyoming. So there's Buffalo Bill Reservoir location and Boyson, and those are the two I'll be focusing my remarks on. So we did have, as far as our water year 2021, snowpack was below normal, which resulted in below normal inflows into our reservoirs. A widespread, however, we got a nice mid-March snowstorm that helped us out in the basins. And Bighorn had a normal irrigation season of the reservoir storage going into 2022 is a near average in the Bighorn Basin. So one of the reasons we were successful there is our irrigation districts managed to carefully use the water, and we were able to meet the water requests from Boyson and Buffalo Bill without any shortages this year. Taking a look at the snow conditions, you can see the top graph is for Buffalo Bill. This is the snow water equivalent in inches. The black solid line is how the snow water equivalent tracked for this 2021, the past year. And you can see the median line is the dashed orange line. So you can see for both Buffalo Bill and Boyson, we were slightly below average. Another thing that you can observe is that we had an earlier runoff, especially at Buffalo Bill. You can see the snowpack dropped mid-June, by mid-June, when it typically carries on almost through the end of the month. And you can see so looking at our inflow conditions then from that snowpack, what you see is a couple of graphs. Top one is Buffalo Bill, the bottom one is Boyson. Solid line tracks the accumulated total in acre foot for the water year 2021, and the dashed line is what we'd get on a median basis of the 30-year median. And so you can see it, Buffalo Bill, our total inflow was 89% of the median. And we didn't get the inflows that we normally do later on in the season in July, August, and September. Similar story at Boyson. Total inflows were roughly 79% of the median. And you can see we really dropped off towards those high flow months in the later summer months in July, August, and September. So one of the keys will be coming up this next runoff season will be if we can get some good spring precipitation, fall precipitation, which we've, at least down here in my neck of the woods, we've had a couple of pretty good rain and snow events. So hopefully we can get that soil moisture build up so that the snow melt next year will get good runoff into the reservoirs. So let's take a look at, in power generation wise, for water year 2021, shows you in blue a generation in gigawatt hours versus average in orange. And basically we had below average generation due to the low water conditions. The total generation in 2021 was about 159 gigawatt hours, or 86% of average, with an estimated value of around $5 million of power generated for the year. And I believe upcoming in the future, we're looking at a major power plant renovation at Boyson is one of the things we have coming up in the power world in the near future. So let's take a look at the start of this year. So because of the conservation measures the district's put in place, we ended Buffalo Bill storage in pretty good shape, about 92% of average. Over at Boyson, we fared even better with 110% of average. So going into this season, if we can get some decent snowpack, we should be able to ride another low inflow year if we get it. So one quick story. If you can see from the picture here, you can see this kind of the shape of the snow on the mountain there is in the shape of a horse's head. So one of the I guess legends in forecasting that the locals use is they look at this horse's head, and you can see kind of this white line through here, which are the rains. The story goes that when the rains break, or you can see disconnect in that white street there, then the inflows will start diminishing. So in addition to our sophisticated statistical analysis and satellite imagery forecasting that we do, it's always fun to kind of compare to the horse's head and see how that fits. But as far as forecasting conditions, the drought monitor shows that at least the upper portion of Wyoming is in the severity of extreme drought. Moving on, looking at some temperature and precipitation information. The two maps show, this is the temperature outlook on the left that shows in at least that upper north portion of the state of Wyoming, what looks like equal chances of above or below average temperatures for the next 3 months, November, December, January. And the precipitation outlook for those same months could be a slight trend for above average precipitation. If we take a look further out, here's the outlooks for March, April, and May. You can see that the temperature for basically the northern half of the state of Wyoming looks to have equal chances of above or below average temperatures. And over on the right, looking at the seasonal precipitation, it's right now they're not showing really any strong trends. It's basically equal chances for above or below normal precipitation. So this early on, it's kind of tough to tell what we'll get, but hopefully we've had, at least down here in the lower basin on the North Platte, we've had a couple of decent snowstorms, so hopefully we're well on our way. So looking at other things in the basin, we've had some aging infrastructures. Our irrigation districts are always trying to maintain the facilities. We had one situation where we had a chute fail at the Deaver Irrigation District. That occurred mid-July, well, July 7th. Let me show you some photos of that here real quick. So here on the, standing at the top of the chute and looking downstream, you can see a photo taken on July 9th, which is on the left, where we had the couple of slabs in the floor of this chute fail on us. And if you take a look a few days later on July 28th on the right, you can see how that failure progressed a little bit. Good news is that so here's another shot showing some of the erosion that occurred as the water flowed outside the chute. Fortunately, the underlying materials were good hard pans, so the erosion was somewhat controlled, and the district was able to continue to deliver water at a reduced rate through the felled chute through the irrigation season. I believe they just discontinued that the first part of October, so they were still able to deliver water, fortunately, to some of those lands in that lateral. So here's an overview of what that chute looks like, and the blue there on the aerial imagery is basically shows kind of the flow path of the water when it moved out of the chute. So the top of the chute up here flowing down, there's energy dissipation structure that dissipated the energy from the chute, and then it flowed out the channel towards the top of the slide. And with the felled chute, the flow somewhat bypassed that energy dissipating structure. So at our recommendation, the district went in and rip-wrapped the outside channel of the canal to protect it from further erosion. And they were able to continue with their deliveries for the remainder of the irrigation season. And the district right now is making plans to get in there and get that repaired this fall and winter. Looking at our dam safety program, Reclamation has an ongoing dam safety program out at Bull Lake Dam. There was deficiencies identified in the existing spillway structure there. We had severely damaged concrete from freeze thaw. We also found that material underneath the slab of the existing chute floor had been moved, so there was voids. And the project basically is to install a new spillway with a labyrinth overflow crust structure, basically in the photo to the left of the existing structure, and then route the flows back to the stream channel. So a couple of shots. We had some delays in the project. Here's a shot of the stilling basin. We needed to excavate 40 feet below the original ground surface so that we could put in the floor of the stilling basin. We had some difficulties with dewatering the groundwater. We had to add quite a few extra dewatering wells at a deeper level so that we could accommodate that, but that was after some delays. We were successful there, and you can see on the right here is construction of the spillway crest structure, and then to the left is the work on the foundation or the floor slab of the stilling basin. And so that's we're looking at completion of that in the summer of 2023, which is about a year delay we had in that. Looking at other things going on, the Midville Irrigation District, you'll see in the upper left hand is a structure that they've put in that basically converts an open lateral to a pipe. And then the other two pictures shows work on the canal lining on the Heart Mountain Irrigation District up above Powell, Wyoming. So you can see the construction that concrete liner and then the finished product. And these activities were undertaken with our Water Smart program. And so because they could show some efficiencies with water deliveries, putting pipe to lateral and then having some savage and seepage losses with the new canal lining, they were able to get funding through our Water Smart grant program. So opportunities for partnerships and funding with Reclamation and the Water Smart program. And that's all that I have. I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lyle. We have time for one quick question if anybody has anything out there.
This is Troy. Joe, what was the cause of the leak for the 24-inch steel pipe on the Oglala core line?
Well, we're still investigating that, Troy, but two things. It's when the power is shut down and increased pressure in that area, and we've been having pipe failure throughout the area, and it could be the composition of the water. So right now TSC is studying different alternatives, but it's probably a combination of the water makeup and then when the system gets shut down for power. So we're working on installing surge tanks and better storage, but we haven't pinpointed exactly what caused it.
Yeah. If you'd be so kind, when it's officially concluded, if you wouldn't mind letting us know, because we have 24-inch steel pipe ourselves, so it's curiosity for our own sake to make sure whatever caused it isn't going to happen on our line.
We'll be sure to do that.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Great presentation by all of you from Reclamation. Thank you.
Any other questions out there?